Thank you, Professor Lin, for coming here and joining us at the MIC Center today.
Thank you.
What is your current research focus?
Currently, I'm working on translanguaging pedagogies. That means how we can use translanguaging strategies in the classroom to help students to learn languages.
So what initially drew you towards translingualism in the bilingual education?
I think I've been doing it all the time, but this label is just a recent fashionable label, whatever you call it. I think we have lived it, and we have been doing it all the time. Yeah, but it's a very nice theory to summarize it. Yeah.
Do you believe that translingualism in educational settings are easier when the languages involved are typologically close to each other?
I think it depends on your socio-cultural context. The linguistic distance is not the real factor. That is, you have people who are passionate about communicating, and whether the languages involved are linguistically related or not, it doesn't matter. What drives intercultural communication or translingual communication is the communities of practice.
So were you educated in a bilingual environment growing up?
Yes, you could say so. In British colonial Hong Kong in the 70s and 80s, although it was pretty much Cantonese dominant, that is, we speak Cantonese most of the time in everyday life. In schools, we deal with English, and also Mandarin Chinese. So we grew up with three different linguistic orientations, you could say, but they are all related. Yeah, even English and Chinese, you think they are very different, but actually they are not that different. They are different only superficially, I think.
Oh, really? How are they similar?
Well, like what you mentioned, the word order, SVO, both English and Chinese are SVO. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, in terms of word order. Yeah.
Do you have a preference for language?
I have a preference for different languages in different contexts.
Oh, okay.
So when I want to be, it depends on who I'm talking with. So if you ask me to choose, I like Korean. I've been learning Korean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, through I like watching Korean TV dramas. Yeah, so yes, and then it changes. Your preference changes, and also pop culture will also influence your preference. And also the communities you are associated with will influence your preference.
So how did your own linguistic exposure affect your academic life?
Well, deeply, because growing up as someone who are bilingual or trilingual, I think we just see multilingualism as natural, as spontaneous, as something that happens every day.
Was there any difficulties in that at all?
There are always difficulties when it comes to examinations, because examinations, they only allow you to answer in one single language. Oh. So, but then there are times when you need to just speak in one language, especially in those gatekeeping situations. But when you go back to everyday life, then multilingualism is the norm rather than the exception.
Right. Where do you see this translingualism kind of research going in the future?
I think it's going to be big. Right now it is, I just came back from a conference in Minneapolis on immersion and dual language education. And there everybody is talking about translanguaging pedagogies, translingualism, multilingualism. Yes, we need to help young people to be able to master a bigger and bigger communicative repertoire. And then we also need to treat different languages with respect. And I always said to my students, in front of God, everyone is created equal. Then in front of a linguist or a sociolinguist, every language is potentially equally valuable, equally colorful, equally interesting. So we must have respect for all languages, yeah, and cultures. And people. Peoples.
Is there any research you're doing currently or anything interesting going on?
I have lots of interests, but yeah, for my teaching and my research, I'm doing integration. I'm doing research on integration of language teaching and content teaching. That is content and language integration. And that's very important right now because you don't learn a language by talking nonsense. You learn a language best by learning content, by learning really interesting stuff. So in terms of teaching then, how does a teacher help a student who is learning science, who is learning social studies, learning mathematics, to also learn the language for science, the language for mathematics, the language for social studies. So right now that's the focus of my research.
That's very interesting because growing up, I was in ESL and Korean was like kind of at my home language. So when I go to school, like I know nothing in Korean for the academic life, which would have been very useful now.
It would be. It will open up a whole new window.
Yeah.
And also, advertising. I just published a new book called Language Across the Curriculum and Content and Language Integration, Content and Language Integrated Learning in EAL context, English as an additional language context. So feel free to email me and I'll send you an e-copy.
Thank you, Professor Lin, for coming and joining us today for this interview, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Ji-Young. It's been such a great honor and pleasure to visit your university and to talk to you.
Thank you so much for coming.